Hey everybody, it's Tim Hepworth here with Thursday Night Live Fly Tying and Fly Fishing Board Outfitters, and I'm here to bring you another quick tie. Today we're going to be going through this awesome fly here, our version on the Lefty's Deceiver. We want to thank Rocky Mountain Fly Shop for making this quick tie possible. Don't forget, all orders over $99 ship for free. If you are part of the quick tie squad, please drop a comment if you're watching this. We'd love to know that you're in here and that you're making use of these videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that little bell, and every time a new video comes out, you'll be able to be notified that it's there. I'm going to be tying out of my Season 5 kit like this. If you don't have one and you still want one, you can head over to our website, www.flyfishingboardriver.com/TNLS5, and you can grab one today. This is what our kit looks like today. Can't believe it's already episode 9. Got a couple of kits in there, but the first one we're going to be tying out of today is the Lefty's Deceiver one. So why don't we head on over to the vise and we will get started. All right, so as you can see, we have it here in the vise right now. We're going to be tying this out of a little bit different than normal traditional materials. We're going to be using some synthetics over a bucktail for this fly today, but nothing else changes besides that from the original pattern. So let's go ahead and we're going to get our size 2 hook into our vise. This is a long shank hook, okay? I'm going to be tying with some UTC 140 in white for this fly. Kind of matches the color scheme that we're working with, and always nice with streamers to have a little bit heavier thread. Let's go ahead and start that thread about a third of the way back down the hook. We're going to take that all the way basically to the front of the hook point. I'll go ahead and I will trim out that tag. And now the first material that we're going to put in here is we have a couple of feathers, okay? Now you can choose from these where you want them from. These are probably saddle hackles, but you can kind of choose what kind of feather you want. We just don't want them to be super long. We want these to be roughly 2 times the size of the hook shank out the back of the fly. Okay, and as you can see, these are oriented a little bit up, but that's okay. When they're in the water, they will swim even. You can see they also kind of cave away from each other. We're gonna basically put one on one side, pointed kind of out away from the hook, and then we'll do the same on the other side. Like I said, I'm kind of measuring about 2 times the length off the back of the fly, and I'm going to tie it in right here where I left my thread, right about that hook point. Okay, tie it in right there, secure it just like so, and I'm going to grab the other one. I'm going to pair it onto the other side like so. Make sure that the tips align so they're roughly the same length, and I'll push that one against the hook shank, and this one's going to be on the near side of the fly to myself. And then once they're together, I'm going to basically pinch them so I know they're staying on each side of the hook. And I'm going to start working my thread back just a little past that hook point, like so. Okay, then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to trim these guys out. So we're going to be left with a little bit of a bump here, but that's okay. The underbody being even on this fly isn't super crucial. We're going to put just a little bit of flash down underneath, and we're going to palmer it forward. What I do want to make sure is that I do have a little bit of a ramp going down with thread, because sometimes that flash doesn't like to cooperate as well as we would like it to. But while we're still back here at the back of the fly, we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of crystal flash in. So we're not going to go crazy with this. Less is more in the crystal flash department. We're going to put 2 pieces on either side of the fly. So I just grabbed a long piece. I'm going to cut it in the middle like so. And then when I go to place this on, I'm going to wrap it around my thread. So I currently have 2 pieces wrapped around my thread, and I'll split them onto either side of the fly here in a moment. So I basically bring it right down on top of the fly. I'm going to put 1 or 2 wraps to hold them in place. And then I'll take 2 pieces and I'll send it to the far side of the fly, and 2 pieces to the close side of the fly to myself. Then take a couple of thread wraps to make sure that they are out on their respective edges. And now I'm just going to pull them together with the tail like so I can see a length. And I'm going to trim them just beyond the back of those feathers. And there we go. That's what we're going to use for crystal flash. Next material we're going to go in here with is we're actually going to use that piece of, well, it's more like mylar than it is flash, because on this side we have gold, on this side we have silver, okay? So we're going to tie the gold side facing yourself. So when you do your first wrap, it's going to flip over and be the silver side. We're going to use the silver on this one, imitating a bit of that bait fish pattern, being a little shiny on the stomach. So I'm going to tie that down, and I'm going to advance my thread. I'm going to bring this all the way forward, lay a nice thread base. I like to lay that thread base all the way up to the eye. It'll help with the synthetic material we're going to use here in a moment. Then I'm going to bring it back just a about a quarter of the hook shank way back, do a little half hitch, set my thread out of the way. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead, make that first wrap. As you can see, it flips over to the silver side. And now I'm just going to palmer this. Nice touching wraps, trying to make sure I don't have any of that white shining through. Once we get past that little bump, it's going to work a lot more even. And we're just going to go all the way forward. I'm just going to take a second to get some of that crystal flash out of the way. There we go. Then we're just going to keep working our way up the hook shank. Just doing kind of the edges of each wrap touch. The Mylar doesn't really always sit perfectly even, but that's okay. I'm going to kind of show you a trick that I do at the end here that helps secure it all. Because if you had one fish or a toothy critter of some kind grab this, you wouldn't want all of it to just come undone, and then you would lose the center flash portion of this fly. Okay, so oh, just like that. It did it on me. So let's do this one more time. We'll wrap forward. So if a fish were to bite that and do the exact same thing, it would break that Mylar, and we'd have to, you would lose your, basically the flash portion of your fly would be lost as soon as that happened. So we're just going to take this all the way forward, leaving ourselves just a little bit of room behind the head to tie in the wing portions of this fly. Just keep going. I'm going to go one more wrap. Be sure not to let it go, otherwise it'll all do that same thing again. I'm just going to come secure it off with a couple of thread wraps over top of it and a couple in front. Repeat the process. Get it good and secured. Then I'm going to trim out that tag. Now what I like to do here is you can use any resin you'd like. Even super glue, you just have to wait a little longer for it to dry. But I'm going to come in here with some Bone Dry by Solarez. And I'm just going to lay a nice light little coating over top of this. A little bit on each side. I'm not putting an excessive amount on at all. But what this is going to do is if, like I said, something grabs that and breaks that Mylar, it's not all going to come undone. I'll just cure it real quick. And now it's kind of attached to itself. Just like that. Okay, now we're going to get to the wing portion of this fly. So we've got a few materials that we're going to use here that might be a little different to you, that you haven't seen before. This first one we're using is a synthetic fiber. Okay, so show it to you like this. You have this in your kit. It's a synthetic white fiber like this. We're going to take basically one piece of it. Don't worry that's going to be block cut off, because we're going to kind of teach you how to taper that a little bit. I'm going to take one chunk of it, and we kind of portioned it off into these sizes for you. We're going to put one chunk on top, one on the bottom, and then we're going to come back to the top with an opposing color. So what I'm going to do here is, you can see I have this butt end. I'm going to cut this at a little bit of a 45. Okay, just like that. Just as if it was bucktail, we're doing the same thing. Now I'm going to lay this right on top, kind of edging it forward to the edge of the eye. My first wrap's going to be back here, a gathering wrap. Second one starts tightening down. I take a few threads forward to make sure I have all of that fiber captured. And now I've established the size of the head that I'm going to have at the end of this. Okay, so now I let go. I basically got this one portion up top. I'm going to do a little squiggle with my finger, just kind of force it around the hook edge just a little bit. But we don't want to cover up that the midline of this fly, because that's where that flash is going to come from. So I'm now going to gather this up in my hand. Like I said, I'm going to kind of teach you how to taper it a little bit. So I want this to extend just beyond the back of the fly, not covering up the whole tail, just a little ways into it. So I'm going to start my scissors back here, and I'm going to start just doing little cuts and pushing my scissors back. So what it does is I have a little bit shorter fibers here. You can see kind of hopped up, and then down into the longer fibers at the back that extend about halfway down that feather. Okay, now I'm going to flip it upside down. I'm going to grab myself another piece, roughly the same in length, of the white. And I'm going to repeat that process again. I'm going to come down till I have that blunt edge. I'm going to cut that little tiny 45 into it, like so. I'm going to place it right on the underside, extending the longer portion of that 45 towards the eye. I'm going to do a gathering wrap, pinch it down, and then take a few wraps forward, just like so. We're going to build up a little bit of bulk in the head, and that's okay. Now I'm going to pull this back, and I'm going to start kind of looking at where I cut that other one. Judge it so it's roughly the same. Do the same thing. Start my cut a little farther back and extend it out. So what I should be left with here, guys, I should have a bit of material at the top, a bit on the bottom. Okay, like so. And we're actually almost done this fly. Less is more in this fly. We don't want a ton of material. We want to imitate this bait fish without having a mass amount of bulk on it. So now I'm going to go over. I have now in your kits, you'll see as well, you have a green color of the same material. I'm going to cut this one just a little bit longer, okay? We're going to leave this one a smidge longer, and this is going to add the accent to the top of the back to it. Very common colors, that white and chartreuse. So I'm going to do the same thing here. This one's already kind of got an angle on it, so I'm just going to square it off. Cut that little 45, and now this one's going right back up on top. And this is important that we don't want this to go around the edges of the fly too much. We want this to really stay as the very top of this fly. Take a few wraps till I see it's good and secured. And now this one we're going to taper as well, but we want to taper it just slightly longer than where the white was. Like so. So when I pull all these back together, I get a good view of them. We want that green to extend a little further into the tail, but the tail feathers back here are going to be giving us lots of movement in the water. Last piece of the puzzle here, guys, on this fly, is we're going to be adding a little bit of red crystal flash to act like, to look like some gills. So grab 4 or 5 strands. I have a whole bunch of strands here. I'm just going to even up the tips, then I'm going to trim myself off a set. So once I've got them, you can see I kind of got them all together. I'll tie them in nice and long, and then I'll cut them to the size that I want. So I just want to make sure that these all stay on the underside. I don't want these to wrap around, so if you got to maneuver them a little bit, make sure they stay on the bottom side of the fly, because that red is going to show through your thread when we cure it at the end. And once I have that done and in, I'm only going to extend this maybe a quarter of the way back down the fly. Trim it, and there's my gills. Okay, you can set that flash aside for your next one. I'm going to flip this back up so I can see it. Now I'm just going to do a little bit more wraps here to finish off the head, and I'm going to add some eyes, which I'll show you here in a moment. Just going to bulk up that head a little bit. I'm going to whip finish it right there. Grab your whip finish tool. Now this is a classic saltwater pattern, but don't hesitate to use it for freshwater as well. A lot of these classic patterns catch a whole lot of trout as well as saltwater fish as well. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that bone dry from Solarez. I'm going to do a nice light coating on this head. I like doing this. It really secures in all that work you just put into it all the way around. I edge it back just to the edge of the materials, just so it touches them. I'm going to hit that with my torch, cure it up. Now you can either go ahead and grab a dark colored Sharpie to make these eyes just touch a spot on there. What I'm going to show you I'm going to use today is I have this stuff all from Solarez. This is UV Cure color resin. Okay, this one just happens to be in black. And I'm going to grab my bodkin, and I'm going to use my bodkin to apply just a very small dab. So I'm going to come on here, take a little bit of it off. And I'm going to use my bodkin just to touch a nice little black spot. Right there. I'm going to cure that one quick before it moves on me. These eyes probably aren't super essential for the fish, but they do make the fly look a little nicer. Do the same thing on this side. Cure it. And there you have it, guys. That is Lefty's Deceiver, tied in maybe a little bit different materials than you're used to. Great pattern, versatile. Keep a few of those in your box, whether you're on the flats or in the saltwater, or if you're out trout fishing, do some colors that are appropriate for the fresh water. All right, guys, it's been another quick tie with Tim with Fly Fishing Board for Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying. Thank you to Rocky Mountain Fly Shop again for sponsoring your quick ties tonight. Don't forget to leave a comment if you're watching along, and we'll see you next week.